To picture England before the Industrial Revolution, we must imagine a nation that was the most powerful on earth, and yet possessed no real factories. A country that had just one large city, London. For the most part, England was a quiet and lovely land of farms and rural villages where only the sounds of weather, of animals, and the distant ringing of church bells broke the stillness of the landscape. Yet England was a land of great social inequality. A handful of aristocrats owned most of the land and possessed by right of birth nearly all of the incredible wealth it yielded. They built magnificent palaces for themselves and filled them with treasure, while an enormous lower class, most of whom owned no land, struggled to survive, often paying rent to the wealthy landowners. These poor people sometimes faced severe malnutrition and even starvation.
Previously, men and women were employed to work the land and lived in with their employer, usually a farmer or a big local landowner. These men liked to keep their young employees single because married employees had children and were more of a burden. But advances in farming practice meant less people were needed to grow food, so fewer people lived in and more were kicked out. Of course, that meant that there was no master to ask for permission to wed. These liberated workers began travelling, earning their wages in new industries. The pay wasn't great, but it wasn't based on the sliding scales of farm work. They reached their peak potential earnings at younger ages and so attempted to marry and start families sooner. Women with jobs found their earnings could shore up new families, adding again to the temptation to marry younger. As for those women who couldn't find work, well, they were eager to marry young and gain financial protection. The result, in the early 1700s, the average age of British brides had been nearly 27. By 1800, it had fallen to 23 and a half. Those 3 additional years of married life were crucial. Girls were at their most fertile and could produce 2 additional babies.
Were fascinated by crime, and Sherlock Holmes fed an insatiable appetite for the excitement of the criminal underworld. Across Britain, huge numbers of people had migrated to towns and cities. This crowding together of strangers led to feelings of distrust and insecurity. And just as today, public fears were stoked with sensational reports of the most lurid crimes. The Victorians began to feel that they were being swamped by a crime wave. There seemed to be an increase in lawlessness in towns and cities right across the country. Crime was becoming a political issue, and action was needed. In 1829, Sir Robert Peel introduced bobbies or peelers to London, and in 1839 the Birmingham Force appeared. But it wasn't until 1856 that the government decided that every town in the country should have its own police force. The police could stop crime as it happened, but only if they were in the right place at the right time. All too often they weren't. For some notorious criminals, it was all too easy to escape the long arm of the law.
Memories are of these cells. My mother stroking my brother and I, trying to keep us warm. You see, all my father's dreams of prosperity, all his plans, they brought us to the edge of ruin.
The comfiest of beds, the tastiest of food, and 5-star service. Stay here and you won't want to leave.
In fact, you won't be able to. It's a prison. Yes, here at Newgate Prison, you'll be able to enjoy the utmost Georgian luxury.
As long as you've got the money to pay for it.
Yes, in return for a simple bribe, they'll unlock your manacles for a while. Let you receive visitors in your private room, and even let you keep pets.
I'd like a pig.
Pigs aren't allowed. Filthy animals.
In fact, here at Newgate Prison, you can live in comfort and luxury.
As long as you don't run out of cash. Right then, you. Let's get you out of this private room. Get you in a crowded cell with the rest of the criminal scum. Come on! You're in luck. The room's just become available.
Newgate Prison. Book early to avoid disappointment.